Hello my darlings and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a long time no see, but today I'm going to try and talk about something that has been very highly requested, and that is my swatch book. How do you make swatches? Can you show us your swatch book? These are, I think, the most requested things that I get asked on Instagram and also here in the YouTube comments. So today I'm going to try and show you how what my swatch book looks like, how I make the swatch grids that you see here, and also how I swatch the pencils and the pens. This might be a two-part series, I'm not sure, but we'll see how long I keep on talking about this thing. So in the first part, I'm going to show you what kind of book I use and how I calculate my grids, and I'm going to also make a couple of grids to show you how I make them. In the second part, I'm going to actually swatch. So the book that I'm using is a messy one. I don't know if you can know, I think I put stickers all over the brand name, but this one is called Artway Studio, and it is a mixed media sketchbook with quite neutral white paper. So it's not super bluish white, and it's also not very creamish. It's a nice white color, and it has pretty thick paper. If I can find this on various Amazon websites in different countries, I will put it in the description down below, because I did get this off of Amazon UK, I think. So it should be readily available. And the mixed media paper means that it can take a little bit of water. I do have water-soluble media here, such as, let me show you. I have the Inktense pencils, among other things, and I have water-based pens as well, and fine liners, and there's no bleed through, there's no shadow on the other side, and it can also take, of course, colored pencils beautifully. So it's a good quality paper, and as you can see, it is bound and sewn. I think this is called Casebound, and it is size A5. And I'm actually going to show you some of the other swatch books that I have had during the years, because this is not my first one, but this is actually one of my first, and have tried many different kinds of books, spiral bound and larger and smaller kinds, and then I kind of just returned to this one. And I'm going to show you a couple of different old ones that I have so that you can see how they compare. Alright, so here are a couple of old ones that I want to show you. A spiral bound book is also an option. Here's a horizontal one that I have, also from Artway Studio. And I do like the horizontal ones because they lie completely flat. But the problem with the spiral bound ones is that the paper is kind of loose here at the edges. So in my experience, I did have an old swatch book that was spiral bound, and these corners of the pages got really worn as I was sort of turning the pages and using the book, because I use these books a lot. So it was really worn and torn at the end. And so I don't think these are as durable as the actual bound books. But it's a huge advantage that they are completely flat. So that's something to consider. You can use them like this, and of course you can use them like this as well. And another one I have is this tiny little 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter, I think, which I really like. It's also not flat, but it's super nice for travel. My biggest problem with this paper is that it's so yellow that it kind of doesn't reproduce the colors accurately compared to, you know, your average coloring book or sketchbook. So that's a shame, because I really like this one. And if it had a white paper, I would probably be using it a lot more. So, but back to my OG swatch book. As you can see, I have a lot of lovely stickers here. And so we can go through this one in detail. I have almost all of my pencils and pen sets swatched. As you can see here, the watercolor pencils, the Albrecht Dürers, the Pablos, Derwent Inktense and Derwent Colorsoft, Arteza Expert 120 set, Derwent Pro Color, the Crayola 100, and here are a bunch of small sets, the Ergosoft, the Uni Posca pencils, the Goldfarbers. Here are some fine liners, the Arteza Inconic, and then the Arteza Twi marker, which is like a brush marker at one end and a fine liner at the other end. Pitt pens, Amazon Basics pencils, the Chromaflows, the Crayola Signature, the Pagos, and this is the Giotto Stil Novo, which I haven't finished swatching yet. The Lightfast, and this is a new purchase. This is also dual tip brush pen with fine liner tip. And then this is the Star Joy Gold Edition 120 set. And as you can see, I have grids that vary in size. These 120 sets that have color names and pigment names, I usually make the grids a little bit larger because these are pencils that I will use a lot. I want to see a good big swatch, and I want to also make place for the names. And as you can see, for the polychromos, for example, I haven't included the numbers because I do not use them. And of course, if you use the numbers, you can include those, or you can just skip the names altogether if you only use the numbers. And generally, I only use the numbers, or sorry, I only use the names, and I don't include any numbers in my swatch book. And as you can see here, the Crayola, I wanted the whole like 100 set to fit on one page, so I think I skimped on the neon colors. I think there are a bunch of neon colors in the set that I didn't swatch because I don't use the neons, and I made the grid so that I can fit the 100 set minus the neons on one page. So the swatch, as you can see, the swatch bits are a little bit smaller than my standard ones. So there's a bunch of ways to calculate your grids, and here these pencils only have numbers, they don't have names, so obviously I don't need a lot of space to write the numbers, so I can make this grid much smaller altogether. And here again with the names, I made the big swatches. So what I do is I'm going to talk about how to make a grid like this, and also how I think when I do these smaller ones. Alright, so first I'm going to talk you through how to make one of these pages with place for 72 pencils. And I'm going to use my Derwent Pro Color swatch sheet as an example. And I'm going to talk you through the different measurements. Now, as you can see, this grid, this contains exactly 72 squares, like this. But what I have done to be able to fit the brand name in here is that I have excluded two colors. I have excluded the black and the white because I do not think those colors are so important to swatch. But of course, if you want to include all of your 72 colors in this page, you can just do so and then just write the brand name over here or on the side or whatever. But I think this works for me, and a bunch of other 72 sets I have also
excluded. Here I think I took out the black, the whites, and the outliner. So I had a little more space for the brand name. And where's my swatch? Here. So I'm just going to show you my most important tool when I make my swatch book is a clear plastic ruler. And unfortunately they don't really last long because after a while they will have sort of ridges and gaps here at the edge. But this one is still fine. And so, and I must apologize to my US viewers because this is going to be all in metric. I don't have imperial measurements, but I hope that if you get one of these rulers, like with inches on it, that you will be able to follow the general idea, how I think, and that you will be able to find your own method to make your grids with as many squares as will suit you. So, okay. What I do on this ruler is that I always try, let me just bring it closer, I always try to make any line, here it is, a whole centimeter or half a centimeter. So I don't want to make a square that is like 7 millimeters because it would be much harder to find on the ruler. Like the next square, I would have to count to 7 millimeters again. So I'm just trying to use these larger markings for the half and the whole centimeters. And if this sounds confusing, I'm just going to show you. So let me bring you in a little closer. There we go. And so this grid that I have drawn here, this is exactly 12 centimeters long. And then the individual squares are 1.5 centimeters. So from this, I think I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from 12 centimeters, I can get 8 squares that are 1.5 centimeters. So it's easy for me to mark out the beginning and the end of each square because of the markings are already there on the ruler. So I don't have to count individual millimeters. And so the long side of this grid is 18 centimeters, and each square on this side is 2 centimeters. So it's even simpler to calculate. And this gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 8 by 9 squares. That makes exactly 72 squares. And like I said, I didn't include the black and white, so I had a little space here to write the brand name. And I'm going to zoom you out a little bit again and just try and draw one of these squares or one of these grids so that you can see exactly the process how I do it. Alright, I kind of had to zoom you in so that you can see the lines that I'm drawing. And I'm actually using my spiral bound book, not my actual swatch book, because I'm not swatching anything real right now, so I don't want to, start a page in that one. But this is the exact same A5 size, so you're going to see exactly what I'm doing here. So I'm just starting, I'm eyeballing the distance here from the top edge of the page. And my first line is going to be hopefully fairly straight. And I make a mark on the 12, and I make a mark on the 0. And of course I'm left-handed, so I do everything backwards. And now that I have the 0 and I have the 12, I said that these squares along here are going to be 1.5 centimeters. So this is easy, I'm just following the markings here. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, 9, 10.5, and 12. So when I remove the ruler, it looks like this. I don't know if you can see it. there's my little line with the markings on it. So that's going to be my first kind of square. And then I turn. Oh, this is done. Hang on. My ruler isn't that great. Okay, so here I'm going to make 18 centimeters. And I'm going to make the markings 2 centimeters apart. So this is 18 and 0. And I'm going to have 9 sections here. There are 2 centimeters each. 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay, and now I just repeat the process. I keep turning this book round and round. And as you can see, I'm just eyeballing the straightness of these 3 lines. So I'm hoping that when I draw my 4th line at the bottom to connect these 3, that it will be fairly straight and also 12 centimeters long. And I don't really mind if it's off by a millimeter or 2 because it's not supposed to be that precise. It's fine. But no, it's pretty straight and pretty exact. So I'm just making the line. I'm measuring at 1.5 centimeters. No, wait, this was wrong. 4.5, 6. Mistake. 7.5, 9, 10.5, and 12. I should know this in my sleep by now, but I don't. So when I have the pencil line, which might look pretty pale to you, I'm going to outline this in, let me just turn it this way. I'm going to outline this in fine liner. And normally I use a 0.1 or 0.2 fine liner. And now I'm going to use a 0.3, where are you? Here. So that it will show up better. But somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3 is fine to use. I'm just going to draw everything. And the nice thing with these waterproof fine liners is that they dry pretty quickly. So I don't have to worry about putting down my ruler and smudging the line or anything like that. There we go. That's a nice square right there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these little markings that I made with my pencil, and with the help of the ruler and the fine liner, I'm going to section it off into my squares, or I think they are actually rectangles. So I just go through like this. And then I do the same thing the other way around and connect these markings to make my horizontal lines. And as I was saying, I'm going to save 2 sections here for the brand name and not use the black and the white. But now, of course, you're wondering, how do I section off these squares so that I have a rectangle for the swatch itself and the rectangle for the pigment name? And I'm going to show you the absolute most simple method. And it's going to blow you away. And this is why I say that I use a clear ruler, because I just put the ruler on the paper and you see all of this marking. You see the number, you see the centimeter mark, you see the half centimeter mark, and all I have to do is to put the ruler straight across, and I can make my section as small or as large as I want it with the help of these markings. And so for me now, it's going to be the width of the centimeter marking. So that's where I put down my little ruler. And I don't even go in with a pencil first, I just go in with my fine liner directly. And ta-da! You have a space for the pigment name and you have a space for the swatch. And when I get this far, I know that I'm very close to being finished with the kind of boring part, and I can soon begin the swatching, and that's going to be the next part. Alright, so as you can see, I have already prepared a few color names here, and the brand is the Star Joy Gold that we're going to swatch just as an example. And I'm going to take you through this, and I'm going to speed you up just a little bit and put on some music. Now, I have made a couple of swatches for you so that you can see what it looks like. And now that I have made the swatches, it's time that I share some tips and tricks, what is really important to make these swatches last. And because these do take several hours, and a big set can take, yeah, it can take a few hours to swatch because I do take my time and I want the swatches to last for several years at least. So as you can see, I took a piece of parchment paper and I put it underneath my hand, and it really doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed, you're going to have kind of the same problem eventually. So as I put my hand here, and my hand is here for an hour, 2 hours, the oils on my skin will rub off on the paper and it will destroy the paper, and the swatches won't be that even, or yeah, the paper can get moist from the moisture on my hand. So I put this transparent piece of paper just to be able to see where I am, but also to protect the paper underneath. So this is, and you could just put a regular sheet of office paper under your hand. It doesn't have to be parchment paper. And something that is also very, very important, oops, oh my goodness, accident. I'm going to zoom you out a little and show you something that is just as important, if not more. If I'm doing a swatch in my swatch book, then I'm going to have swatches already on the previous spreads. So if I do a swatch on this page, I always put a sheet of paper in between the previous spread, so that when I press down the pencil, I won't press the pigment from these pages together, so that there will be a transfer of pigment. And this is especially important if you're swatching soft pencils, or if you have soft pencils on the previous page, because they will make a transfer. And also another way to avoid transfer of pigment on your paper to the next page, or on your hands, or wherever, I think that it's quite useful to blend or burnish your swatches when you're done. And this is the Caran Bright Blender Stick. I do think this is a little bit too waxy, and it does move the pigment around. And so I do not prefer this for blending out my swatches. I do prefer a burnishing pencil. Now the Derwent Burnisher, I'm sure there are many brands of Burnisher, it doesn't do anything to the pigment. It doesn't brighten it, it doesn't make it more vibrant, it doesn't move it around. All it does is just pushes the pigment into the paper. It gets rid of any smudges or any crumbles that might sit on top of the paper, and just presses everything into the tooth of the paper so that there is no excess pigment sitting on top of the surface. And this goes a long way toward not having any pigment transfer onto the next page. So when I close the book with my swatches, I can be certain that there will be no transfer. And usually you can go either way with this burnisher because it doesn't really move the pigment. So I can actually just start in the darkest area and move toward the lighter. And all I do is I press quite hard, but like not super hard to the point of breakage, but I do press down so that I work the pigment into the paper, and then I make sure that I remove any pigment from the tip before I move on to the next color. Of course, I'm using my parchment paper to protect the rest of the page. I can also just rub the tip off on my parchment paper to clean the tip. And it might seem daunting to do this whole process after you've already spent several hours swatching your pencils, but this really makes it last and it protects your swatches. So I do think it's worth those extra minutes. It's a lot quicker to burnish or blend than to do the actual swatches, so it's not that terrible. And because I'm super extra like that, I also like to use, now you really can't see it here, but I like to use a fixative spray on my swatches as well. And what I do, it's, you know, it's not necessary, but I like to do it, but you have to be careful because some types of fixatives will change the color of your pencils. I find that the water-based ones that are like odorless, they are not that good. I've never had a problem with like the stinky ones that smell really terribly chemical. Those are usually much better. So what I do is I don't spray every single spread when I'm done swatching. I usually wait till I have swatched a few spreads and I then go out in the yard or on the balcony, and then I will spray my pages with a fixative spray. And like I said, I do buy the one that is sort of stinky. I will put the brand in the description as well. I'm not sure if it's an international brand or a Swedish brand. But yeah, so ask your local art supply store for the smelly fixative, because I find that it is safer and it preserves the colors better than the water-based odorless ones. So that's what I do because I'm extra like that. And as you can see, there are a lot of hours and there's a lot of work in my swatch book, but this is the absolute most useful coloring tool that I have. Because obviously I don't use every pencil set or pen set as often as my Polychromos, for example, or my Derwent Lifast recently. And it's super useful to be able to pick out the palette that I'm going to use and see exactly what colors I can choose from. And it's also super easy to combine the right colors from a larger set like this. For example, if I want something neutral or I want something more, I don't know, tropical, it's very easy to select the correct colors that look good together. So I do think that it's worth to make a swatch book, and it's also a really great opportunity to get acquainted with your new pencils. You get to see firsthand how well do they sharpen, how pigmented are they, how smooth are they, how well do they layer, how scratchy are they, and so how easy or difficult it is to make gradients with them. And so there is really valuable information that you will get about every single pencil in your set, so that you will know kind of what kind of pencils you got and how they behave. And so I really do think it's a great way to get to know your new pencils or pens. And yeah, I do take this really everywhere with me. I think it's a super nice, useful tool. And I also want to show you this really nifty thing. And this is especially good if you have a book that doesn't sit exactly flat. I bought this on just some random website. I think it's called a book stand. And you can just put, of course now you don't see it properly, but you can just put your book in it, and it will not only save you a ton of space on your desk, it will also keep your spread open and flat like this. So this is a great little accessory that I have, and when I don't use the book I can just put it like this on the stand in the corner of my desk, and it's there ready to be used the next day. Alright guys, I hope you have found this video instructive. I will leave some notes and links in the description down below. And if you have any questions, just ask in the comments and I will try my best to reply to everything, or maybe make a follow-up video if there are a bunch of sort of relevant questions about stuff that I forgot to mention in this one. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care!